Hi, Angelika. Welcome to our first Fireside Chat for Data Literacy Geek. I've brought my little fire here to sit next to while we're talking about all things data and data literacy. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Boris. Great to be together with you in the room where we
Yeah,
will discuss so many topics around data literacy and how we can help companies to achieve those goals that they want to reach.
yeah, it's brilliant. So the idea here is that we have weekly casual chats about several topics. Today we wanted to speak about, is data really the new oil, and all these like platitudes that you hear everywhere, and if that really makes sense or not. So I think we'll skip the introductions and just get right into it, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
what's your opinion? Do you think data is the new oil, or
Well, I think data is important for organizations, but you have to do something with it before it comes something. And I think we are on the same page here. You have to refine oil to do something with it. But you also have to refine data to do something with it.
yeah?
So and actually, as as people say, data-driven decision making. I think it's more insights-driven decision making from my point of view. So,
Yeah. So
but we can argue about that.
no worries. Yeah. So I think this is actually a pretty good point, right? So just drilling for oil and taking it out of the earth or out of the sea, or fracking it or whatever you do these days is probably not the entire story, right? So what you need to do is like you need to turn this oil into something else before it becomes really useful, right? So it's valuable as such, similar to data, right? So if you just collect customer data, as we see with companies like Facebook, Amazon, and all these others, it's already quite valuable. But the
Yeah,
stuff that you take from it, right, is it what makes it actually valuable. So this could be like resources for plastics or fuel and all these other things, right?
yeah,
So what is it that you need to turn data into to make it really useful and make it valuable in the end?
yeah. So you have to do something with it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You cannot say, okay, data is oil. Yeah, data is important. Data is here amongst us, and it's growing massively around the world, even today and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. But you have to do something with it in order to gain value. Actually, not even to gain value, to show some things that are important for people, organizations. But then you have to do the next step, and that is get into action.
Yeah.
So data in itself is no oil, no
Yeah.
holy grail.
So what is it that you turn the data into to make it more valuable for people?
You should actually make insights for people, for the mass. Work with simple graphs to start off with simple graphs and grow beyond your imaginations with more difficult graphs. But again, data itself is beautiful. Really, data. I love data. If you look at my laptop, I have so many data sets or links to open data sets and do fantastic things with it. But you have to do something with it again. But you are a chemist, so you know.
I know things about like turning some things into other things. Yeah, and that's right.
Yeah,
So turning data into insights is like what the essence is, right? So you need to take data, you need to take the right kind of data and turn it into something, for example, insights that then will lead to, I think you've mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, ultimately actions, right? So the ultimate goal here is not to collect and assemble data for data's sake, but to see something within that data and then ultimately act upon
yeah.
what you're seeing there, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So you have to do something with it to make beautiful insights. That can start very simple with the 5 common used graphs that we have at the beginning of our path in our journey: bar charts, line charts, tables, okay, pie charts. But Brian likes them, Brian Boudin,
Mm,
and maybe even some text objects filled with a calculation of how many products did I sell. Um,
yeah,
but those are the common basic things, and from there you have to look for your exceptions and analyze your exceptions to get into more action to improve, to get
Mm.
more intelligent. So yeah, well,
Do you
actually that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I guess so. Like you have to go through a refinement process, right? So do you have in your experience? I mean, you've got like tons of experience in the data analytics and like data value generation, yeah, field. Do you have an example from your experience where you had like data where the raw data as such wasn't that, yeah, valuable or that like expressive, but then you've transformed it into something else, and that led to like a major disruption?
Well, the major thing is, I think you know the project as well, is the one that I did for the safety region here in the Netherlands. And it's not actually me who have built the dashboard, right? I just helped within the project as an advisor, gave some tips like, okay, maybe here, maybe there, just move it into a certain kind of direction. And I love process flows. I love to approach for a company the combination between horizontal driven and vertical driven. So top-down versus horizontal. And to use KPIs, but also the process as a point to start to improve your process. And I think we made a very big disruption here in the Netherlands with building the call to balloon dashboard. And the call to balloon dashboard is about the 112 call, dispatch call, or 911 as they say in America, and get the ambulance on the road in case of heart failure, come to the patient's room and help them to stabilize, make an ECG, look at it, see that they need a special treatment like blowing up the balloon in the closed veins of the patient, transport the patient into the hospital, get the treatment, and it's done. And actually in that process, with some steps, we managed, or the company, the safety region North Holland North, saved 20 minutes in time in that particular process. Life-saving and quality improvement of life saving minutes. So that's fantastic what they did. Mind-blowing.
Okay. So call to balloon doesn't mean you call a balloon or you get like
No,
you get a balloon.
no.
You might get a balloon in the end, but this is about like patients who have severe heart issues, and then
Yes.
you blow up, expand the balloon in the arteries to clear, or veins to clear up the clear up for blood flow again.
Yes.
And you build a data-driven or insight-driven application that allows you to measure the time required between the initial call where somebody calls and listen, hey, I'm feeling sick, and then the time if it should be required, it took them to yeah, blow up the balloon within this person's blood vessels.
Yeah, well, the Dutch authority, the Dutch healthcare authority says that that treatment needs to be done within 1 hour and 20 minutes. And now they are at the pace of 1 hour and 16 minutes, which is the average of a data set. So that's rather good. And of course you have your exceptions. And what I loved that they are doing is that they look at the exceptions and that they improve based on that exceptions and
Okay.
discuss it with each other. They're actually at a meeting table and discussing the outcomes, what they see, to improve the process, all parties. So dispatch, ambulance, hospital. So that's cool.
That sounds really impressive. So what were the like the net benefits that came from doing this project? Did you get like an actual reduction in the time that was required? Did you identify bottlenecks within the processes that were required between like the
Yeah,
call and the treatment in the end?
yes, there were, I think that there were on several pieces of the process, there were some gaps, like longer time necessary. So actually, they started out with changing the process at the beginning of the process. Like when you go to dispatch, normally dispatch would ask a lot of questions, but in case of a heart failure, they send an ambulance, and you are being called from the ambulance uh, to ask questions about the patients, to the people who reported, of course, the severe case at dispatch. They changed some kind of process, like making the ECG sooner, as quick as possible, because that's the only way you can indicate that you have this special indication. They call it STEMI. I'm not a doctor, but they call it STEMI. And if you have that indication on the heart rate, then you know you need this treatment in the CAD room, in the cut room.
All right.
And they changed the process also at the hospital. So you're not being brought anymore to the first aid, but you're being immediately brought to the CAD room, to the
All
cut
right,
room.
Grant.
And
So
they,
this means that your the application that you and your team built that showed these bottlenecks that were like evident from the data within that dashboard, and then that led to immediate corrective action by the hospital and by the ambulance staff and paramedics, I think they're called.
exactly,
And yeah,
exactly.
that's really impressive. So this is a really good example of how you can turn the raw material, right, data, or what would be raw oil, into something that is really valuable to users, and in your case, it's actually saving lives, right?
Yeah.
And um,
And
so
did,
that
did you did you by the way do something else, a nice project, life-changing project? Did you?
I haven't done I haven't done a life-saving project yet, but I've worked with a company which is also about like stuff flowing through pipes, but it was actually sewage pipes. And it was I might have saved lives. I don't know. It's like it was a project where we looked at parameters that were measured within the sewer, right? So in special application areas, you don't have like your standard water treatment plant. You have a specialized one, right? Especially if you're working in like with pharmaceutical companies or chemical companies. Sometimes stuff gets into the water, and before that water gets into open water again, it needs to be treated, right? So, and in these water treatment plants, there are a couple of like microorganisms living, and these microorganisms actually eat these hazardous chemicals, but not all of them. They're quite picky at that, right? So sometimes if you give them the wrong thing to eat, the poor suckers die, right? And this is actually a bad thing, right? Because if these microorganisms aren't there anymore, they can't really clean the water anymore. So what this means is if you have a catastrophic failure of that water treatment plant, what this means is that you cannot actually clean water anymore until the bacteria within that water treatment plant have regenerated, and this can take up to 9 months. You can imagine what that means for a chemical company if they cannot really
Yeah.
treat wastewater anymore, because they will have to either store it in a tank or ship it off to a competitor who will then get rid of the wastewater for them, right? So this is a problem if this water treatment plant shuts down. So what they did is like within the sewage system, they had multiple stations where they measured certain parameters like throughput, like how much water is getting through here, what's the water temperature, and other parameters regarding to what is currently being put into the sewage system. And then in front of the water treatment plant, they had more sensors that would tell them how much carbon compounds are in there, how much phosphorus, nitrogen, all these other things that now tell you, okay, so listen, here are a couple of hazardous chemicals coming through. And then between this measurement and the actual like entrance into the water treatment, I think you had a couple of minutes for it to divert the water stream to not lead to catastrophic failure. So what we did with those guys was we looked at, all right, so sometimes you see anomalies. If something bad happens within one of these chemical companies, for example, you would see that they have an increase of water throughput because they see, okay, so we had a spill, so what we needed to do is like use up a lot of water, and then you can see this in the amount of water that is like being fed into the system. And then a couple of minutes later, when it arrives at these sensors in front of the treatment plant, you would see, okay, so listen, now we've got a dangerous level of different chemicals. So this was the basic setting. So what we did with them is like we developed anomaly detection algorithms, right? So sometimes you have loads of water that you put into the system, right? Because you either store your wastewater until you feed it into the sewage system, or because your one case was like the fire brigade were cleaning their hoses. They did this like every 2 weeks on a Wednesday, and then you get like huge amounts of like water being fed into the system. And then this algorithm would detect if something is an anomaly, which doesn't mean it's like a huge amount, but it means that this is a huge amount that we're not expecting, because we normally don't get this at that time during this weather and so on and so forth, right? And what we were then able to do is, like, we were able to identify, okay, so listen, this is an anomaly that will need to be reacted to within the treatment plan. So either the stream will have to be diverted, it will have to be shut off entirely, or something else will need to happen.
Yeah.
And the continuation of this project is actually quite interesting, right? Because what we've discovered is that sometimes you have developments of these parameters that will lead up to this anomaly that is associated with an accident, for example, right? So this will mean that you not only able to react when the anomaly happens, but you're also able to predict whether that anomaly is going to happen and preemptively start to react to this, right? So I guess it's not as cool as blowing up a balloon in an artery, right? But it's still saving
Cool
life,
as
and only
well.
if it's only microorganisms in a water treatment plant, right?
Yeah. So actually, data is not exactly the new oil as we see it, I think, but
Yeah,
data, if you turn it into valuable insights, can bring a lot. It can help cleaning the sewers. It helps in saving patients. It helps in improving businesses. So actually, data can do a lot of things. But to name it the holy grail or the new oil, I think that goes a little bit too far.
yeah.
But I think so. I think we are on the same page again.
No, this is totally cool. So what I would like to do, or what we would like to do, is use these chats to give, or share our thoughts with people out there about, like, data, about the value of data, about what can be done with data, share stories like we just did about what we did with data, share stories about what we see happening within the world of data, and
And
also
maybe have
share.
some guests to join us as well.
That would be absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
I would love to have Jordan Morrow, of course, once on stage here
yeah.
in the panel, in the room, in the room, I have to say it correctly, or maybe Joe Warbington to discuss how he thinks of data literacy.
Sure, yeah.
That's the topic. It's not about tools. It's not about solutions. It's just about data literacy and how can we help people with good stories to inspire them to go
That's
on the
right.
journey, because it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's always a journey. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week, Angelika,
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah, stay safe.
Yes. You too, darling. And
Yeah.
talk to you next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Can't wait. Bye.
Bye.